Okay, we are going to begin the October 3rd Policy Committee meeting. And just kind of a reminder that we have a special meeting in between this and our Committee of the Whole. So we have a fairly short Policy Committee meeting agenda this month compared to last month, if you remember. Yeah. So for policies for the first reading, we have one, and it's policy 203, public participation in school board meetings, complaints about persons at school board meetings, and data privacy considerations. And just kind of for history, we reviewed this 5 years ago in the October and November of 2020 was when it was reviewed and then passed at that time. And so it's time to renew again. And so Patty sent us, thank you so much, Patty, the three of the policies. The first policy is with the changes, a red line copy with do you want to just describe it? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. When you're looking at that first attachment, the areas that are highlighted are the words that so I combined the current policy and the MSBA policy so you could see where the differences occurred. The areas that are highlighted yellow are the verbiage in our policy. The areas that are in red and have a strike through are the words in MSBA, but we don't currently have in our policy. There is some exceptions when you're looking. For an example, the first yellow block, the verbiage is just in a different spot. So it's the same verbiage as MSBA, it's just in a different spot on the policy. On like the open forum part, it's the same verbiage in MSBA, we just put it in a different area under public comment.
And so the purpose of this policy is the school board recognizes the value of participation by the public in deliberations and decisions on school district matters. At the same time, the school board recognizes the importance of conducting orderly and efficient proceedings with opportunity for expression of all participants' respective views. The purpose of this policy is to provide procedures to assure open and orderly public input, as well as to protect the due process and privacy rights of individuals under the law. And then, like all policies, it has a general statement, definitions, rights to privacy, the public's opportunity to be heard, public comment procedures, and complaints, and then penalties and violations of data privacy. And then it has the legal references and the cross-references, and there were additional legal references from NSBA on this copy. Just wondering, did you have anything in addition you would want to say, Patty?
I was just going to say, yeah, those red lines and the legal references are related to legal changes, like some of the statutes changed numbers or the name of the statute changed, so I reflected all those changes in the red line copy.
And thank you so much again, Patty. That is so key because so much can change within, well, definitely 5 years, but within months. So, Member Paul, Member Simon.
Thank you. So in the, I guess in section 6, public comment, I just wondered if we wanted to add something there to kind of on current practice, where it says the board shall provide time when persons may address the school board on any topic subject to limitations of this policy. Okay, and then it says the board reserves the right to allocate a specific period of time for this purpose and limited time for speakers accordingly. I guess it's actually the next paragraph. The school board may decide to hold certain types of public meetings where the public will not be invited to address the school board. Possible examples are work sessions and board retreats. And I just thought, we don't, it's our practice not to have public comment at our committee meetings. And that's a more regular meeting than certainly a board retreat. So should add that there. Possible examples are work sessions, board retreats, and school board committee meetings. Or are we going to allow public comment at committee meetings? You see where I'm coming from here?
Mm-hmm. I think we could be that specific.
Yeah, because this, I mean, our committee meetings are regular monthly meetings. And it is, for the most part, standard practice not to have public comment at our committee meetings, our COW meetings, our policy, and our HR. You know, we've invited the public to talk at some of those meetings, but they've been invited guests, I believe, to share their knowledge of something that we're addressing. But I was just reading that and I'm thinking, well, our committee meetings are regular monthly meetings. Should that be in there? And isn't that maybe more important than, you know, board retreats?
I think we can have some discussion on it, maybe kind of jumping to that section. One of the things that I did with assistance with Chair Leopold is we actually pulled some of these policies from other districts because since COVID, and throughout COVID, many districts have actually changed the way they've been doing the public comment, and I think some of you maybe have heard that when we've been going out to conferences and that. And so I thought that as we talk about the procedure piece of it with public comment, we may want to just look at what other school districts are doing and consider some other procedures as well. For example, one that a number of districts have gone to is still public comment, but they refer to it often as a listening session. And they often will do it before our business meeting that starts at 6:30. So for example, they might do it from 5 to 6. And either all board members or some board members, they do it differently, are attendance. One of the things that school districts that have gone with that route have said is they've said they have gotten the public to say that that's frankly almost a more comfortable setting for them to speak because it's a little bit more informal because it's not a part of the meeting. So what I have copies here, and thank you Patty for making, is the copies from Rosemont, Apple Valley, and Egan. There's copies from Mankato, and I understand you guys have looked at this, so you know this will be, I'm passing to share, so because this is the first reading. Richfield Public Schools and Rochester, again, just as some examples, so if you want to take those to study. So kind of along with that item that you said, I just wanted to share this too. I haven't had a chance to look at all of them to see how they might address your concern or your idea, Paul, about how specific they are, but it's worth looking at what other districts are doing as well.
I'm just looking ahead now, again, because this ties number 9 of section 7 does say public comment may be taken on any issue at the board's regular monthly meeting. Public comment at other meetings, which might include a meeting like this, at other meetings will be limited to the issues on the agenda for that meeting. Public comment may or may not be taken at meetings where there is no official action. And again, we don't take official action at these meetings, but I mean, is that leaving the door open for public comment at our committee meetings, or do you want to kind of clean this up in a way that is more specific as to how we want to do it?
I think that's a really good question. I think part of what we're hoping to do is have, and one of the reasons why we introduced it as a topic now is because we wanted to have some back and forth dialogue and conversation with the whole board too, so that the board could consider giving us input as a committee, just because this is a very, very important decision that we want to make collectively. But I think to your point, Paul, making sure that we're specific about where we do have public comment and where we don't is really important, because if we suddenly don't allow public comment when there's something controversial, that gives an air of lack of transparency. So I think it's important that no matter what we decide, that it's well stated within our policy, and then that we don't deviate based on whatever topic it is or whatever the hot button issue is, because that is a trust builder for the district. So I agree with you, Paul.
So again, this is our first reading. It'll go in front of the board where there can be further discussion. Would we want to, for the first reading, as it goes to the full board, add number 3, something more specific as you're proposing, Paul?
think that's one, sorry, I think that's one idea, or we just open it up for a quick discussion at the board meeting, if that's
I think,
appropriate, or
I think our role as a policy committee is to propose, and then it can still be discussed, but, you know, to have, you know, something to think about, or to present, to discuss as well, and that's kind of why I provided everyone with these documents as well, to do our own homework as the policy committee. So if you have some thoughts on that, and there's agreement from those of us here, we could add it. This will be a part of the, you know, again, the October regular school board meeting for its first reading.
I guess we need number 9. I don't know that we need to change anything now that, you know, this public comment may or may not be taken at meetings where there's no official action. So we could decide if we think there's something controversial at a policy meeting, I'll stick with policy meetings, but at other committee meetings, you know, open it up to a listening session before the committee meeting. Have that out there instead of doing during the meeting. I mean, I like the idea of listening sessions. I think we've had it before when we've had the property sales and it done, we've had the property decisions on the docket. So I think I could go either way on this. I mean, I don't know what you want with going forward.
I've heard from my superintendent colleagues around the state that they're finding a lot of success with the listening session, as you pointed out, Rosie, that there's greater ability for us to really listen and almost, we don't engage in discussion, but it doesn't feel like intimidating where people have to sign out and stand at the podium and have things timed in the same, I mean, it would be timed, but it would be a different style. And I think that might be better for the public as well.
I was just going to say I like the idea of the listening sessions too, or at least exploring them, and thank you for bringing these examples with as well. That's going to be really helpful to review before our next policy meeting where we have a second reading. I would like to explore, you know, what that looks like as far as making sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. Just not being as familiar with the listening sessions. If, you know, they were scheduled for an hour, I would just want to make sure that everyone who was there had an opportunity to contribute.
Well, in some of the districts where they have the hour, I mean, again, they do it different ways, and again, you can read through that and as well as explore on other district sites, but sometimes how it's done is they do have people sign up ahead of time, so that's kind of one way. Sometimes if the meeting has to end at 6 or whatever time frame we give, some only do it for half an hour, by the way, but that they then, you know, certainly invite people to come back to the next meeting or invite them to send us emails or meet, you know, separately. So there is that. The other thing for some districts, what I've heard is that it actually has, what they've heard from their communities is that it's kind of been a respectful way for community members to know 5 to 6 is when the listening session is. It's not in the middle of the meeting someplace like ours falls, you know, sometimes. And so it's allowed people to plan, you know, I can come here and then I can go on with my night or stay for the meeting, we hope.
Well, I like the idea of listening sessions too. You know, whether we did one listening session a month, whether it's before the policy committee or the other committee meeting or the cow meeting, you know, and I think that I would keep it limited to a half an hour, you know, so then you could then move on with your meeting. And the reason I like it is it provides another day of the month besides the one day of the month that our board meetings where we're taking public comment. You know, so people that have busy schedules or whatever, maybe can't do Tuesday evenings when we have our board meeting, you know, maybe there's another day of the month that gives them that opportunity to share some of their thoughts.
Yeah, actually, Paul, that would be in place of the public comment during the meeting. And so how most districts do it is they do it from 5 to 6 before the same night of their meeting. And then they have that half-hour time, because sometimes, as we know, we have special meetings or different things. And then the business portion of the meeting begins. So it's in place of the public comment during the meeting. Remember, Sadowski?
You know, I think another consideration too is sometimes when public comment, like to your point of having a set time for folks so that they know when public comment is going to be. I think it would be better for some of our staff to come to present. A lot of those presentations happen after the public comment, so it's hard for them to plan to if they're going to be coming and speaking at the school meeting.
That's a good point, and what I've heard from some of my colleagues is that we want to make sure that we're doing very good work in listening. So the listening session is important, and at the same time, the school board meeting is a meeting of the school board to conduct school board business. And so thinking about how do I think sometimes having a little bit of a pause between the two can also allow for more of a focused way of doing business afterwards. When we start going into the student recognition, we start going into the other things. It's I think it can be impactful to have the listening beforehand.
So the proposal would not be to do it before a committee meeting. It would be to do it before the regular monthly school board meeting, when all of us as board members are committed to that date already as well.
I just think that this should be thought through from the standpoint of, don't want to diminish public comment. We want to, allow the public to feel like, if they are contributing, at that board meeting in a way. And you stick it in front of the board meeting and board members up there, then that's problematic. And I don't know how the public perception, that's coming from here. What's the public perception of doing it that way? Are they going to feel like that is not listened to or taken in the same vein or whatever as when it's part of the board meeting? Because it goes on the record when it's part of the board meeting, correct?
Right now, how we do it, it is. Member Sadowski?
I guess if we moved it, I would assume that every board member would be committed to being there. It would just become part of our practice, I would hope, so.
I would hope as well, and I would say with a sliver of selfishness for my staff, who quite often, if we're not beginning a school board meeting till 6:30, and then if we have an hour or more of public comment, sometimes it's 7:30, 8 o'clock before we're really getting into the school board business. And if we have multiple presentations with people waiting, it would be nice to know that there was a scheduled, structured time. That can be beneficial, but to Paul's point, I think it's important to have a sense of seriousness and respect and full participation by the board if we're looking at it then, so that it will be looked at as expected time, not just make it if you can, because I think that would make a difference.
And I would add that, again, from conversations around the state with other boards that have moved towards this model, or have always had that model, because frankly, ours is a different model than most school districts have too, by the way, is that they felt it enhanced the opportunity for the public, and that the public knew then 5 to 6 or whatever time frame was when they could come, and some people, and I know I've experienced this my 10 years on the board, where people have came hoping to speak, but the public comment either didn't happen or went right away, and then they had to leave. So it kind of created a time frame that was respectful also for the public. So I think there's different views on would enhance it and allow more people to participate and more people to feel comfortable in a more of a listening style fashion than I think the way we're currently doing it. So the one thought, I guess, is, again, this is the first meeting and or the first review of it. I don't know, Superintendent Magus, if at our next policy meeting, has that been set yet? Have we? Okay, so I know you have a survey out there when our policy meeting, because of another conflict, that we also do have a board retreat. I don't know if you have a little bit of opportunity there to discuss that at that retreat. I'm just kind of brainstorming here.
I think that could be a good opportunity. I know the board retreat is largely focused on school board self-evaluation and process that for evaluation. But I think in some ways, looking at how do we deal with public comment is evaluative in nature. It's an opportunity for us to improve. So we're talking, one of our 3 goals as a district is improving systems, and this would be improving our system for public comment. So I think that leads a very clear path forward for us as a committee and as a board.
So back to Paul, your first comment. Did we want to make a proposal, make a change in 7 that we want to bring forward in this first reading, or not?
I'm not proposing any changes based on the way I interpret this. Now looking further down onto item number 9, because I think again, 9 allows, public comment may or may not be taken at meetings where there is no official action. So I think that does allow the board, to open up a meeting, whether it's a policy meeting or some other meeting, to say, maybe there's something important here, let's allow, but you would put it on the agenda for that meeting, to say, let's have, 15 minutes of public comment on public comment. And, so then we could get some feedback from the public on how they feel about something like that. I mean, you sort of, what I'm saying is, again, number 9 does kind of leave that open there to add public comment at other times if we choose. But Superintendent Magnus said, we want to be transparent, we want to allow the public to, have their opportunities to share their ideas with us. So I don't think we need, I'm not proposing any changes.
Member Sadowski?
I was just going to add to your previous point, Member Sandholm, too. Consistency is really important, and I think we are really consistent currently, and we will be consistent moving forward about our public comments. So, when it says may or may not, we'll just be consistent with what we do.
Any other comments on that section, which is section 7? Do we want to add anything about changes, or do we want to have that discussion at our retreat before we bring a change forward? But when I update the board at our board meeting, say this was part of our discussion?
I think that's good.
You all do also then have copies of these 206 policies from other boards to look at and see, and then, part of our work is to do our homework as well. And so taking the opportunity between the hearings of this to do that would be what I would recommend. Any other sections of this policy that you have questions or comments on? Okay. Encourage you, if you have extra time, to read through some of the legal statutes. They're always interesting. Okay. And thank you again, Patty, for giving us the red line version, the current version from 2020, and then the NSBA model. Okay. Policies for the second reading is policy 516, a student medication policy. And again, this is to replace 6180 and let's get to that policy. The purpose of this policy is to set forth the provisions that must be followed when administering non-emergency prescription medication to students at school. And I know we had Director Jason Crane here at the last meeting when we reviewed that, but is there any additional comments? We will have the final version. And then we'll be deleting 6180 medication administration in schools. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Okay. And that is it on the policy committee agenda, and we will then move into shortly our special meeting.